What's up, everybody? This is the one and only African Superstar back at it again. Shout outs to the African Superstar family. Guys, when you come into the room, let's go ahead and get into the chat room. Let's not take a lot of time today to get on code. Let's not take a lot of time today to get on code. I want to give a shout out to our members only. Those that are supporting our platform on a monthly basis. If you're interested in members only, hit the join button down below and get access to exclusive behind the scenes content. Yes. Also, in other news, you can book a custom bespoke tour with your African Superstar. Limited time only, as I am pursuing other endeavors that may soon have me unavailable for your touring needs. Yes. So we also have an upcoming tour with Mr. Taye Uhuru. That is October 19th through the 26th. So if you're interested in that tour, make sure you book your spot today at www.tayeuhuru.com. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. You guys know how it goes by now. Please get into the chat room, and I'm going to get onto tonight's proximity topic. Yes, big shout out to the African Superstar family. If you guys love proximity, please make sure that you are an active part of our conversation tonight, and make sure that you are a part of this platform. Yes, as we do the work, deconstructing the mental miseducation of our people, video by video. Yes, so please make sure, guys, I'm waiting for you in the chat room. Please be on code. Let us know where you're watching us from. Let us know that you are in the building. Live streams are contingent on crowd interaction. Yes, so you guys have 2 minutes to get into the chat room, or else we end the stream. That's just the rule of thumb. We already know, especially if we come here regularly. Big shout outs to the family who is in the building. I'm waiting for you in the chat room. You have 2 minutes to get there. I'll take this opportunity for a commercial break, and I'll be waiting for you in the chat room, family.
My new song, Boom Boom, is a crazy banger. Oh my God. I hope you have that.
One and only
the African Superstar.
African Superstar on the
You
track.
gotta wanna play it on repeat. Just listen.
International award winning. Yes.
Trust me. When it comes to lyrics,
In the
we don't
midnight
play.
hour, when I get next to you, butterflies in my tummy, and my heart goes boom, boom. In the midnight hour, when I get next to you, feels so exciting, and my heart goes boom, boom. There's nobody like you. You're my one and only. Since the day that we met, I remember you've been driving me crazy. I love your brown eyes and your chocolate skin. Not ashamed to say it over and over again.
In the midnight hour, when your pretty eyes meet mine, your qualities are mesmerized. You will go down on your knees, say a little prayer for me.
Yes, big shout out to the African Superstar family. That is my latest track, Boom Boom, featuring Kojo Iheneba. The full audio is here on YouTube. It is streaming everywhere. So if you enjoyed that clip, make sure you add us to your playlist. Your African Superstar has 3 EPs out currently, about 8 music videos. So we are on task. Big shout outs to those of you guys in the chat room. I see you there, Amina. Thank you so much for being there. As always, shout outs also to my members only in the building. Beacons of Light, I see you there. Thank you so much. Yes. Tasha from Cape Coast, shout outs to you. Thank you for joining tonight. Yes. I appreciate that. Amina, repping from Michigan. Yes. Thank you, Tasha from Cape Coast. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Let me go ahead and get on into the topic tonight. So shout outs to the African Superstar family. Many of you have seen some of my proximity series. There's over 10 different episodes currently on proximity. And what proximity is basically the fallout of our people being in close proximity to our historical and modern enemy and all of the different things that it impacts and a lot of what we deal with in those situations. Tonight, I want to talk about this topic. Shout outs to my homegirl, Nunu. Nunu and I were having a conversation yesterday in which she brought this conversation up. And she talked about the difference among our people. You know, there are Pan Africans like myself who are pro Africa, that are pro unity, members of the diaspora that are, you know, enterprising on the continent, promoting the continent, you know, people that engage in intercultural marriages or relationships, those of us heading to the continent bringing enterprise and business. You know, you have this element of our people, and then you have the Black excellence component. Hello. And what Black excellence is wanting to be recognized within the confines of that society. You know, we see it today, modern day. We're still seeing people, oh, the first, you know, graduate from this university, the first, you know, Black astronaut, the first this, the first that, you know, the first student to be admitted to several Ivy League schools. And you see our people striving to kind of be this token magnet instead of seeking real change. And I've talked about this on the channel before. A lot of our people are very happy with the trinkets. A lot of our people are just happy to be recognized. You know, there's this stuffed toy. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it. It's a monkey, and he has two cymbals in his hand, and he's just clapping and he's just moving around. You wind him up in the back and he just moves around and claps. I think he's on Toy Story or so. And that's what is representative of, you know, you're basically pandering to the system. And it's a very individualistic way of looking at our people and members of our community because it promotes you to be excellent. Okay, which it's great to be a high performer. I'm a high performer. A lot of you are high performers. A lot of you people are very well educated. Some of you guys are high earners. It's great, you know, good for you, kudos. But what does that do for the collective? And we already see the crabs in a barrel mentality. Okay, we see this discord among our people, this unhealthy level of competition. And this is, in effect, an element of Black excellence because it pits you against me. You know, it makes you feel like if, you know, Gina's achieving something, that's one less opportunity that I can have. And, you know, we see this so much within our people, not thinking like Black power. Black power wants not only representation, but they seek real change. Ibrahim Traore is obviously the most relevant Black power figure of our time right now. You know, he's demonstrating real change for the people of his country, for the future of his country, and for the future of Africa. You know, I believe that he does serve as a motivator to other people, you know, and he is a source of pride for many of us that have similar views about the way forward for our people. You see, he's not just happy to be a figurehead. We have a lot of Black leaders across Africa that are just happy to be recognized as figureheads, you know, happy to be a minister, happy to be in parliament, happy to be a president, but their function is doing diddly squat. You know, they are not improving the lives of their people. They are not creating a memorable legacy. A lot of them are participating in corruption, which enriches their family while their people suffer. So there is a very distinct difference between Black excellence and Black power. And for those of us that want Black power, this is important for us to understand. You know, this is a benchmark of us to understand who's rolling with us and who's not rolling with us. I would say majority of the diaspora, they're Black excellence people. You know, they're not ready to take tangible action to solve the issues that persist. And matter of fact, a lot of them are just completely oblivious to these issues in the first place. You know, they ignore these issues as they are still pursuing their goals. I mean, I think about what the current climate in America is. I had a conversation with my sister today, and my sister is, she's nervous about me potentially traveling to the U.S. this year, telling me that there's been a lot of issues with immigration, that they're profiling people, they're detaining people. And she's also been concerned about a lot of the plane crashes and plane issues and things like that that have basically persisted since the beginning of this year. And, you know, we were talking about it, and there are some people that are completely in denial about the current state of the West. They can see the uptick in violence. They can see the inflation, the increased cost of living. They can see the intensified racial climate, huh? But they are in so much denial, or they're happy with their piece of the pie. You see, I've never been a piece of the pie kind of girl when it comes to issues relative to my people and my community. I've always been concerned about the majority of us, because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't come from the trenches. I think it's kind of obvious. you know I don't come from those type of beginnings. But you see, this whole motto of Black excellence, for instance, again, it pits brother against brother. And what does that do? That harbors envy, that harbors hatred, jealousy, and competition. You see, this is why, in so many ways, the ideology of socialism and communism is a beautiful concept, which is everyone's going to be provided for. Everybody is going to be taken care of, not the model of capitalism, which is, there's going to be a handful of people on the top, and then, the majority of the people are going to support those people on the top. And the ends justify the means. In a capitalist society, everybody knows that poverty is a necessary element. Slavery is a necessary element. People are going to work and live hand to mouth for the duration of their life. These people sitting at the top, they're completely aware that that's how it has to be. But they're okay with that because they're going to benefit at the end. So tonight I'm going to talk about Black excellence versus Black power. There is a line of distinction. I believe this is proximity, because obviously living in that environment, many of our people seek to be acceptable to the master. They want to be exceptional to the master. They want to be validated by the master. And where does that come from? That comes from proximity. When you're not living among them, you don't necessarily have that desire to please them. Now, on the continent, don't get me wrong, due to colonization and things like that, you still see the element, and you see it oftentimes when people from the continent migrate to the Western world. You see them, pandering to the white people, trying to marry the white people, trying to cater to them in a lot of ways. But obviously, living in the lion's den with these individuals is going to create that element so much more because of the proximity. Yes, big shout out to the African Superstar family. Yes, I see you guys in the chat room. Thank God. Cynthia Williams, thank you so much. That's an African Superstar music level right there, guys. Make sure you add the African Superstar to your playlist. I did play a snippet of my latest track called Boom Boom, and it is streaming everywhere. You can also find my entire catalog exclusively at bandcamp.com. I have currently probably over 20 songs out, and I have 3 EPs out. So acquaint yourself with my music if you are not familiar. I am an award-winning musician in Accra, Ghana. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. Brown Coat Blue, I see you there. Thank you, guys. We're going to get into the videos. I have some videos that I want to share with you on this topic. Soul Consciousness Theater, I see you there. Big shout outs to my sister. Hello, my Sunday born sister, Akos from Cincinnati, Ohio. I see you there, sweetheart. Thank you so much. Brown Coat Blue, I have not checked the flights recently, but Ghana is so popular that they want to capitalize big time. And I think obviously the American market, they are primarily who everybody wants to discourage. I mean, this is not modern, this is historical. They have always wanted to discourage Black Americans from experiencing the continent, which aligns with why there's so much propaganda. I think European, Blacks in Europe, they travel frequently to Africa. It's so much easier to travel to Africa from European countries. It's been my experience going to Ghana, going back between the UK and Ghana, sometimes going to Paris, taking other airlines, which, I've taken KLM, I've taken Brussels, I've taken Turkish, I've taken Air Morocco and Egyptian Air and Kenyan Air. I mean, I've flown basically, probably at least 10 different airlines I've taken to Ghana because I'm always going for the deals. Wherever I can get that deal is when I'm trying to be on. You feel me? But I think, you know, because of the powerful potential between the American diaspora and the continent, that's why there's just so much focus on that, and with the rise in popularity of African travel, they have definitely increased the flights to match. Yes. All right, let's go ahead and get into the video. Shout out to the African Superstar family. Please take a minute out and like the stream if you enjoy proximity. There are several other proximity series. I have a whole entire series because a lot of times we are in these environments. We are suffering in various ways. We are suffering psychologically. We're suffering professionally, romantically, socially. And the reason is because of our environment. And so I'm taking time out to cultivate this series. Please acquaint yourself with the previous proximities if this is a topic that interests you. All right, let's go ahead and get into the videos. Big shout outs to the family.
My homie reached out to me after I reposted something from 19 Keys the other day saying Black excellence is the scam that replaced Black power. He said, what's wrong with Black excellence? I guess to some that might be a controversial statement because we've been so deeply indoctrinated into the idea of Black exceptionalism that we think one athlete, one actor, one president, one rapper represents meaningful progress for Black people as a whole. But the studies show that Black median wealth will reach zero by the year 2053 if the current trends continue. Millions of us live in prison slave camps making lids for Starbucks cups for like 50 cents a day. The hood is as fucked up as it's ever been. But we got more millionaires than ever before. That shit is a scam. I think that's also the reason why we don't unify or strike and weaponize our labor in any of the industries that we dominate. The NBA, the NFL, the music industry. Because so rarely is one of us more than one step removed from poverty, so nobody's willing to risk it. We know we're being exploited by streaming. We make up all the labor and none of the ownership of the sports teams. Shit, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying we shouldn't strive for excellence as a people or as individuals. But we cannot make the mistake of confusing one of us getting out the hood with the progress of the group. We also have to look at the success of individuals that's achieved to the detriment of the masses. We be celebrating shit just cause a nigga got some money. It don't matter who the fuck had to die. Like if niggas run around making a bag off the prison industrial complex, are we cheering that shit on?
All right, we have Vic Mensa. Vic Mensa is a popular rapper from Chicago. He is mixed race with Ghanaian descent. I believe his father is Ghanaian, and he frequents Ghana. I actually had an opportunity to see him when he came. I think it was 2 years ago. Hosted a big festival in Ghana, and I went to hear him speak. And that was actually my introduction to him because I wasn't familiar with his music. But a very knowledgeable brother, and he was talking about this comparison, Black excellence versus Black power. The fact that there is visibility of our people in the entertainment world, in the sports world. We have some very wealthy members of our community, but the overall well being of our community is terrible. We look at the education rates, we look at the murder rates, we look at the single family homes, we look at the collective wealth, we look at the entrepreneurship and ownership. Unfortunately for members of the American diaspora, they have been those that have been dispersed the longest, 400 to 500 years, yet they have the least. And that's how if proximity was a really good thing, guys, our people, especially Black Americans, not a sprinkling of them doing well, but overall our people should be doing well if proximity is good. So Vic was talking about it being a scam, us being promoted to basically dance and jig and move for them within the confines of that environment, but not really having anything to show for it overall. So we'll get into the next video.
Peace, 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 melanated Black African family all around the world. And in this video, I would like to rant about today, and I would like to talk about and rant about today is the difference between Black excellence and Black power, and why I want Black power over Black escalates. Now, when we think about Black excellence, we got to understand Black excellence is really just Black people in white faces. But Black excellence is not really us building an institution for ourselves that when we can create privilege and control of resources for ourselves. We don't need Black people in white faces that's going to be up in that faces acting as puppets for white supremacy, such as politicians, celebrities, athletes, entertainers, millionaires, these Black people who are in high places here in America, in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Latin America, but yet they don't do anything for Black people. They don't do anything to help Black people. They don't do anything to better Black people. Like, for example, I will give an example of people who are Black escalates, people like Barack Obama, Clarence Thomas, Muhammadu Buhari, Bola Tinubu, Paul Kagame, all these stupid celebrities who are in power, but they don't do anything to help Black people. But the meaning of Black power is institutions that Black people control, that Black people have, that we can create programs for ourselves. And I will give you an example of a person who is demonstrating Black power. For an example, Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. He is, even though, yes, he's a high place, he's a president of an African country, but he's not acting as a puppet for the Western imperialists in Africa. He's actually working and bettering of the interests of the people of Burkina Faso and trying to help the people of Burkina Faso. This is what I mean by the meaning of I would take Black power over Black excellence. We don't need Black people in white spaces who are just going to sit up there and act as puppets for white supremacy. But what we need Black people who are going to build institutions for Black people and build resources and privileges for Black people. That is the reason why I will take Black power over Black excellence.
Shout out to this brother. I could tell he was getting his words a bit jumbled, but I think it's because he was very passionate about the topic that he was discussing. And he obviously illustrated, the most popular Pan-African right now of all time is Ibrahim Traore. What he's doing is just amazing. He's transforming his country. And you see, something else I want to point out is nobody fears Black excellence. That's how you know that that's not necessarily the focal point, that shouldn't be the focal point of our people, because no one is scared of Black excellence. They know that you're a figurehead. They know that you are a mascot. They know that, you're going to be happy with these accolades, and you're going to be happy to be recognized, and you're going to be happy to, get the write-up in the magazine. Don't get me wrong. I love a little recognition. I'm award winning. I love all those things, but to me, that's not life defining. You know, what's life defining is real instances of legacy. Um, but Black power is frightening to the whole damn world, which is why that people that really, you know, exercise Black power, people that are unapologetic and people that are taking tangible action, they are a serious threat because they don't mind Black excellence, but they fear Black power. Shout out to the family. I see you. Are you guys there in the building? Yes, thank you so much. Brown Coat Blue says proximity is bad. Many people make very strong arguments that the school integration was more about gaining control of Black children than anything else. I mean, obviously, we can see the fallout of our community since integration. I've talked about integration on this channel where I feel that we have benefited the least. You know, we've given even closer proximity to them with integration. You know, at least in the segregation, we had our communities, they had theirs. They were not privy to our intimate knowledge, you know, being in our houses and in our family and in our communities and knowing how we behave and our psychological preferences and all these things, you know, by giving proximity, by allowing them in, that's very dangerous. You know, they do say keep your enemies close, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I fundamentally disagree with that. You know, why do you want your enemy in close proximity? You know, when people are getting poisoned and this kind of stuff, people are getting backstabbed, it's always somebody in close proximity. You don't want to have your enemies in close proximity. You don't want them to have access to interior knowledge and things like that. It's just foolishness. And so when we look at this thing intellectually and logically, it doesn't make sense. Integration was not for our benefit at all. And we can look at the state of our people as a validation of that. So big shout outs to Brown Coat Blue. Appreciate that comment. All right, let me get into my last video and then we'll continue the discussion.
Black excellence, at least the way we use it now, is a scam. Sorry. Before y'all get mad, I'm not saying Black excellence is a bad thing. It used to be this celebration of Blackness and how we are excellent in our different facets and multiplicities. But it's now just turned into like a different iteration of Du Bois' talented 10th. It's now just being tossed around like this idea that some of us are just better than others, and it's hurting everyone around. On one hand, what was once a celebration and upliftment of other Black folk in a white hegemonic culture has now become a comparison game, where if you're not the very best compared to that other Black guy, no one cares. And Black folk are doing this as a community to each other. We see this in comment sections all the time. Oh, well, this one person got an A on their test. Well, I got an A on my test too. Well, I know somebody else who got a better A. Well, I know somebody else who went to Harvard. Da 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 da. And the accomplishments of that one person have just like gone out of the window. It's starting to promote this idea that if you're not the best of the best, then it doesn't matter. And it's starting to impact people's self-esteem. But on the other side, if you are that epitome of Black excellence, the higher you are, the harder you fall. Eventually, this excellent Black person will make a decision, be it a conscious one or just a mistake, that will deviate from this perception of Black excellence. And the backlash is horrifying. And I can say this now pretty comfortably, despite years of being this epitome of Black excellence. The minute people found out I was single and pregnant, I became a statistical disappointment to the Black community. And I did so many things right. I advocated for my community. I got my education, got my master's degree, have a really stellar job, and all that means nothing the minute I made a choice other people wouldn't make. Because I, this representation of Black excellence in the community, have fallen. And it's not just me. Malia Obama was caught smoking a cigarette, and the way y'all talked about her, y'all might as well been Republicans. You're a Black girl with a platform, and every single day you look all put together and yada yada yada, but one day they catch you in a bonnet, you're toast. This idea of being Black and excellent has become dehumanizing. You're no longer a person in multifacetedness. You are a representation of the community, and what you do is apparently reflective on everyone. So you better not mess up and make them look bad. What was once a celebration of excellence have now become a way to keep us in line with the white hegemonic culture. What was once excellence as defined by Black people for Black people is now excellence as defined by the white dominant culture. And if you've never been a part of that excellence, then you're not worth anything to begin with. And if you're a part of it and you fall, then you're worth nothing now. It's not excellent anymore. It's just control. And I'm not saying don't be excellent. I'm not saying don't excel, don't be great. But buying into this constant idea of being black and excellent is starting to become more burdensome than I think it's worth. At least if we don't criticize it and nip it in the bud now. But I don't know.
Afrikansuperstar family, thank you guys for your attention as I share. I like to share context because obviously there are people that just think I'm pulling this stuff out of the sky. People that have different levels of awareness or low awareness, they think that, these things that I'm bringing up are just completely bizarre. So I like to share context that, hey, I'm not the only person saying this. Other people are saying this. Males and females are saying this. And this is a very, very real thing. So this young lady talked about, kind of being put on this pedestal. And then as she made other life choices, kind of being taken off her pedestal and what that experience is like. So I correlate that again to the crabs in the barrel, the competition. And I mean, again, it just reminds me of that monkey, you know, dancing and singing for the master. You're just so happy. You're just so happy to be recognized by them, to be seen as acceptable by them. And to be honest, Black excellence is such a fragility. We have seen that, for instance, musicians, we see what's happening with Diddy. He was hailed and, this mogul, and he was rich, and everybody wanted to be at his parties. We just look at how, when you do things that, and I'm not going to speak explicitly on Diddy because I haven't been watching the trial. I have my own life to focus on. But when you get outside of that excellence, parameter, they strip everything. I remember with OJ Simpson, they took away his Hall of Fame, status. And then Bill Cosby, they destroyed his reputation, and R. Kelly. And, I mean, there's countless others that have just had all this, recognition and accolades and awards like completely stripped from them. And so, guys, Black power is what is important. Black power is going to be what creates change. Not the perpetual song and dance where you can't really get ahead. Because again, the minute you see all these institutions that are delegating who's excellent and who's not excellent, okay, they can strip that away. And then what? But let's say you actually create something from the ground up, or you make provisions for your people, or, for instance, with Mr. Traore, you improve the conditions of your country, which is going to translate into so many things. Okay, first trivia question: what do you think that the people of Burkina, how do you think they feel right now, being a part of this day and age, this time? I've seen some videos of people, traveling to Burkina and interviewing the people and hearing how they feel and their outlook. But first trivia question: what do you guys think the people of Burkina are experiencing right now with this powerful leader transforming their country? I saw a few weeks ago, Wodamaya traveled to Burkina Faso. He did a video about how Traore is putting roads through the entire country. He's putting paved roads in parts of the country that have never had roads. This is life changing for the people in this environment. This also makes the country more inhabitable. Huh? This makes the country more inhabitable. Living on the continent and seeing some of the conditions that people are experiencing and things like that, I can understand why some people want to maybe migrate, or they want to look for opportunities. In some of their cases, their living arrangements are really, really stressful, difficult, not inspiring. I mean, although I live in Ghana, which is one of the most expensive African nations, currently one of the most developed countries in West Africa, the popular place to be. It's got it going on. I don't see a lot of that poverty, but I understand, obviously the more rural you get, the more village you get, you're going to see that. Um, Now, the people of Burkina, let's just take for example, okay, those that are living out in these rural communities that never had paved roads. They got to deal with, the annual rains. They got to deal with, lack of transportation and the difficulty of getting from here to there and all that. Now this man is putting roads in. That's going to make his country people, that's going to make life better and easier for them. Now someone who maybe used to spend 2 hours trying to travel because the roads were rough and their car gets stuck or breaks down and all this stuff, they're going to be able to commute and travel much easier. You see, Black power is where your focus should be. All right. And if you don't happen to be a world leader and you don't have, control of mineral resources and all this kind of stuff, then focus on being a member of Black Power for yourself and for your family. What can you tangibly improve and change for your life? What can you do? Instead of jigging and moving and dancing and singing for the master. I hate to say it, but there are so many of our people that have achieved this and achieved that, and they're not even recognized. We don't even know about these people. I learned about the Black women that worked in NASA a few years ago when they made the movie Hidden Figures. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, that was the first time you got any knowledge of these women as well. At the time that the movie was created, only one of those ladies was still alive, and she was well into her 90s. I don't know if she's still alive, but all the other women that had worked on those calculations and worked on those spacecrafts and, did all that stuff, they didn't get recognition for decades of their life. I lived in Columbus, Ohio, where our airport was named after John Glenn, the astronaut who got all the credit after these women, did what they did with the space. You see, so at the end of the day, yeah, it's great to be excellent, like I said. But if you strive for tangible change, that is going to be much more powerful. That's what makes you live forever. I give the example sometimes that, during the age of Kwame Nkrumah, there's literally millions of other African men, millions of other Ghanaian men alive. But Kwame Nkrumah made himself immortal because of the legacy that he created. And his legacy was what? It was about Black power. It was about African power. It was about, empowering his countrymen, creating businesses, educating them, manufacturing, pride. All those things, that's what created the legacy. Now, those of you that are Black excellence people and you just, you have a bazillion awards, you've been recognized in this People magazine and all this stuff, at the end of the day, you might become a big deal to your family. But that's as far as it extends, So the first trivia question was, what do you think the people of Burkina, what are their sentiments at this time? Hmm? That's the first trivia question. The people of Burkina right now, they are proud. They're extremely proud. Now, if you go to Nigeria or you even come to Ghana, you will find a lot of Ghanaians that are not happy with their government. They're not happy with the way their countries are functioning. You go to Nigeria, they're definitely not happy with President Tinubu. Um, it makes them embarrassed. you know, to be associated. That's why so many, so many youth, they want to leave their countries and go to the West. The West has done a tremendous job over the years of promoting itself as this big, bad, powerful country, the most, best country in the world, and all this kind of stuff. People want to be associated to performance. They want to be associated to um, forwardness, and albeit those of us that grown up in the Western world and we know what it really is, the rest of the world is under the guises that, American life and is there's opportunities is good, is this and that, the money is strong, the dollar is falling currently, especially in Ghana. But they've done the marketing. The marketing is deep, deep, deep embedded in people all across the world. Okay. The people of Burkina, because their leader is instituting real change. Hello. Any of you guys going to answer this question? Because I don't see no replies to the first trivia question. The first trivia question was, what do you think the people of Burkina Faso, what do you think is in their mind right now? If you are a member of the diaspora and you love Ibrahim Traore, you get excited when you see him on social media or you watch his speeches, or, some of you may have already traveled to Burkina Faso. He energizes you. He makes you excited. He makes you proud. He makes you happy. He makes you smile. If you feel that, what do you think the people that are living there, witnessing this change, feel like? You see, Black power is for all of us. Black power is impactful. Black power transforms lives. Black excellence is for the individual, and Black excellence can easily be taken away from you. We hope that Ibrahim Traore is permitted to fully recognize his vision, because obviously we know he has a lot of enemies trying to, interfere with his plans. We hope that he, is able to realize the extent of his dreams. But even if he doesn't, and even if something happens prematurely or whatever to him, he has already become immortal. In 2 years of ruling in that country, he has already become immortal. Who's the first graduate from Harvard University? Do we even know? Who is that guy? I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Who's the first Black, African American graduate from the Ohio State University? Do we know? Huh? Do we know? We don't know. This brother right now, 2 years in, he's that guy. We recently elected, a new president in Ghana, John Mahama, who was previously in office and came back for the remix. He got inaugurated, and Traore came to the inauguration, and he, this was his first time leaving his country since he got into power. And Burkina Faso is a border country to Ghana. So he came to the inauguration. It was all on the blogs. It was everywhere. Traore got an applause more than anybody else. Even the the president in Ghana. He's such a big deal, and he's such a big deal because his focus is Black power, not Black excellence. He's not dancing and singing for our enemies. He doesn't really care what they think and how they feel. Because striving to please them is a futile thing. And when we teach our kids that too, we're also setting them up for this type of rhetoric and this type of cycle that doesn't really create change. I mean, again, like Vic Mensa said in the video, we have Black millionaires, we have Black scholars. I mean, virtually everybody in Ghana. I mean, academics are so important to continental Africans. A lot of them have advanced degrees. I mean, they're very serious about their academics. But when we look at it, when we look at their countries, it's like, okay, are you applying these accolades? You have PhD, you have masters. Can you solve any problems with that? You know, you feel big because you went to school in England or you went to school in America, but what are you doing? You know, I don't have an Ivy League degree, but again, I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say I'm immortal, but I definitely am totally impactful to so many people, to thousands of people. You know, I have made my mark on this world to be remembered. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. That's tonight's proximity. Big shout out to the family. Beacons of Light, thank you so much. The people of Burkina Faso feel proud to be an African and have a true example of leadership in their own country. Facts. And again, this is what we don't get. You see, we look at the self-esteem issues of our people. You know, we look at our people wanting to bleach their skin. We look at our people trying to mimic foreign accents and want to strive to marry foreigners and proximity to foreigners, you know. And all of this is due to the fact that they lack a source of pride. You know, everybody wants to be a part of the winning team. Everybody wants to be associated. You know, it's just like, you know, people probably out there using my name nowadays. Hello. Oh yeah, I know. You know, I know some people. They've actually reached out to me. Oh, you know, I was talking about Ghana, and you know, my friend connected me to you and shared your videos with me, and this and that. I know my name is out there now in terms of what an authority on what Ghana. You know, moving abroad, moving to the continent, having longevity on the continent. You see, this is Black power. You know, what I'm after is Black power. Okay, representation is all fine and good, but it's not going to get down to it. And so if you are a Black excellence person, be honest with yourself about what that Black excellence really, really means and what is it doing? What is it doing for you? What is it doing for your family? What is it doing for our people? What is it doing for the future? You know, if you really want to make your mark in our community, then you strive for Black power, whatever that means in the context that you can achieve it. You know, for me, I did the avant garde thing of leaving the Western world and setting up shop in Africa. That's how I demonstrated, because I demonstrated that, you know what, the Western world is too restrictive for me. It's not safe for me. I'm not putting up with the perpetual and endless racism. I'm going to go back to the continent. You know, if I'm going to struggle anywhere, if I'm going to hustle anywhere, I'm going to do it in the homeland and maintain my dignity and pride. I'm not selling out. And because I have maintained that position and I'm not apologized for that position, I have become impactful to my community. That's what Black power does. That's what Black power means. Shout out to Cynthia Williams. She says they are happy. Big shout outs to you guys. Thank you. Those of you in the chat room, those of you that are on code and being a part of our conversation today. So I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to illuminate this again. Special shout outs to my girlfriend Nunu, that, you know, we were in this conversation last night and I thought, wow, that's a really good proximity to bring to the channel, because it really does illustrate that line of demarcation among our people. When you are expressing your desire to go to the continent or your frustration with the Western world, and you encounter these people that are like, well, I can't, you know, why you go to Africa? This, you know, and they're okay with their little one corner, huh? You know, you're dealing with perhaps a Black excellence person. They're okay with their little sliver of the pie. They're okay with it, you know, because for them, just being in proximity, it's an upgrade to their life. They don't think much of themselves. You know, Black power people are people that are confident. people that are bold, people that are unapologetic, people that love their people, love their image, love their hair. You know what I'm saying? They're fully immersed into who they are. And they're also going to empower, huh? They're going to empower other members of the community. Hey man, we don't got to put up with this. We don't got to live like this. You know, let's take our chances and do something else. You know, we've seen centuries of no change in this environment. Let's try something else. You know, Black Power people believe in the capabilities of their people. That's the line of demarcation. Joe Mama is in the building. What do you think of the FBA reparations argument? I don't know if there's been any recent developments with the reparations. I really don't keep up with, the FBA mantra or the situation. My thoughts on reparations is, firstly, they're unlikely, and if they were awarded, I believe that the spectrum would be so broad that a lot of people that don't deserve to be compensated would find themselves being compensated. And then lastly, I believe that our people would funnel that money right back into the American society, you know, which is like double jeopardy. It's like your mom giving you $100 and then saying, hey, you owe me for the money I spent on your upbringing. They're going to go right ahead and absorb the money that they delegate to you. So, I mean, those are my general thoughts. Again, I don't know if there's been any recent developments with reparations or whatnot, but that's my general thoughts on the topic. Yeah, I mean, the FBA people are definitely not Black Power people, because first of all, they segment themselves from Black people globally, you know. So that action in itself is anti-unity. You know, they've also come up with this ideology of disconnecting themselves from Africa, them not being Africans, and wanting their own piece of the pie. Again, that's not Black Power. When we look at all the Black Power figureheads of the past, all of them were for unity. All of them were Pan-African. They were pro-Black. They were pro-African. That was everything they were about. They were not dissing other members of the diaspora and not wanting to include them in the movement, because in reality, all of us face similar instances all around the world outside of the continent. So but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I don't really follow what the FBA people are, because again, I'm Black Power. So I want tangibles, and I realize that it's very, very unlikely to obtain that in that environment. You cannot use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. You know, it has been attempted by several different leaders in America. You had Malcolm X, you had Dr. Martin Luther King, you had Huey P. Newton, Marcus Garvey. You had these people that were challenging the status quo. Some of them were trying to utilize the judicial system and politics to do it. And, at the end of the day, the change was not achieved. And so I don't put myself to a futile fight. I also don't discount the importance of environment. Environment is something that the diaspora has not, fully assessed, how just being in a toxic environment comes with so many side effects in itself. If, for instance, you were in, I talked about this a while ago. If you were in California when those wildfires were breaking out, okay, if you were smart, and you weren't a damn cowboy, you would say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and evacuate because these fires are close. And I don't want to take the risk of, you know, being here and then the fire coming and, being in that situation. Okay. We understand proximity when it comes to danger, natural disasters, and things like that. But we don't understand it when it comes to social and psychological issues. Simply living among them, sending our kids to their schools, living in their communities, eating their food, enduring their weather, taking in their culture. It's all toxic for our people. And we look at the state of our people. We look at their performance. We look at their outlook. We look at their children. We look at their wealth. And the majority of them are not performing well. And we don't correlate those factors with proximity. But we can witness members of the diaspora moving outside of that environment. Some move to Africa, some move to Latin America, some move to Asia, some move to Europe and thrive. Yet those that are in the quote unquote best country of the world are so severely challenged, and we do not look at proximity. Proximity needs to be considered by our people as a toxic factor in our lives. If you want to compare, for instance, the youth of Africa to the youth of the Western world, their performance, their outlook, their focus on academics, their behavior. I mean, it's like night and day. And it's not just a diasporan issue. You can look at foreigners from other nations that move to America and their children start, behaving in that way, living in a way that they would never do in their homeland because that environment is not going to allow it or tolerate it. You see, so the Western world is a very toxic place. And I don't think it's ideal for many members of our people, but that's up to you to decide. But I'm going to keep on talking about these proximities for you to actually, for it to illuminate a lot of the fallout of what we are encountering in these environments. Big shout outs. Brown Coat Blue says, our people are easily distracted. We have superiority in all other things, but the tricks, deception, and distraction is highly effective. Wow. Very true. Very true. I mean, we think that we can just sit in water and not get wet. And if any of you guys go get in water right now, if you go get in the shower right now, are you going to get wet? We're foolish to immerse ourselves in a particular environment and not think that it's going to impact us, and this is a word to the wise to my African migrants. Beware. Because a lot of the behaviors you see in the American youth and the British youth and the German youth, yeah, you're raising your kids there. Guess what? Guess what? Huh? You think you can just shelter them and shield them from their environment that they're growing up in? No. And when you start considering that and looking at the bigger picture, then you see what it is. Big shout outs. Amina says we waste time talking about FBA and other topics that don't move us forward. We do need to focus on Black power. Big shout outs to Amina. Yeah, they don't really have a place on my platform. I don't, have much to say either here or there with them. I feel like if they want to be effective, they should focus on their movement. And obviously, you guys know I'm focused on my own and the affairs of my audience and promoting you guys to be those that take tangible action. That's what I talk about. That's what I'm all about. people can feel any type of way they do. And the truth is that many members of this FBA movement, they are very, very wildly emotional, but they're not boots on ground. They're not doing anything tangibly apart from getting into the platforms of Pan-Africans and pro-blacks and, those of us residing in Africa. That's what they spend their time doing. And that's not Black power. That's not Black power. Okay, because at the end of the day, they're just becoming, a nuisance and a nemesis, and they're not doing anything. You can see Pan Africanism is not dead, guys. You can see that, Pan Africans are making strides. You can see that members of the diaspora that are serious, they're being strategic, they're making strides on the continent. I know that there's a lot of gray area. I know that there's a lot of cultural differences and you need to stay woke. But it doesn't mean that you cannot create tangible change. Okay? All right. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. All right. I'm wrapping up now. Guys, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please make sure that you do. I'm going to also post the proximity playlist to the community tab directly following this, so you can catch up on proximity series if this is your first episode or you want to see some of the other topics that I've covered. Okay. Big shout out, special shout outs to my members only getting behind the scenes vlogs. I will be posting another one in a couple days. I just posted one yesterday. So shout outs to my members only that is in the building supporting our platform. If you're interested, make sure you hit the join button and you will get access to behind the scenes vlogs and so on and so forth. Okay. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. I hope you guys have a lovely evening and I will see you guys again soon. All right. Until we meet again. Stay Black and true. If you ain't Black, just stay true.